Ambassador Yara Chen stood at the center of the great hall. Around her, 1,000 alien faces watched in silence. Some had eyes. Some had crystals that glowed with inner light. Some had no faces at all, just shapes that moved and shifted in the dim light of the Galactic Assembly. She took a deep breath and spoke the words that would change everything. "Earth is dying," she said. "We have 18 months. A rogue singularity is moving toward our sun. When it arrives, our star will collapse. 8 billion humans will die. We are asking for help." The silence that followed was heavier than any Yara had ever known. She watched the delegates whisper to each other. She saw some of them look away, unwilling to meet her eyes. She knew what they were thinking. Moving 8 billion people was impossible. The ships did not exist. The resources did not exist. The will did not exist. The Grand Arbiter, a tall being made of flowing silver metal, rose from his seat at the center of the chamber. "The Assembly thanks the human delegation for this information," he said. His voice was cold and formal. "We will vote on a motion to provide emergency assistance." Yara watched the votes appear on the great screen above her. Red lights for no. Green lights for yes. The red lights spread across the screen like a disease. 847 species voted no. Only 52 voted yes. The motion failed. "The Assembly offers its condolences to the human species," the Grand Arbiter said. "We will monitor the situation with great interest." That was it. 300 years of membership in the Galactic Collective, and humanity would die with condolences and monitoring. Yara walked back to her quarters alone. The halls of the station were empty and cold. She thought about her children back on Earth. She thought about her grandmother, who had told her stories about the old days when humans first went to the stars. She thought about all the times humanity had helped others, asking nothing in return. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. "We help because that is who we are, little one. Not because we expect anything back. Not because it makes sense. Because when someone is hurting, you help them. That is what it means to be human." Yara remembered the stories. Every human child learned them. They were taught in schools and sung in songs and written in the hearts of every person who ever looked up at the stars. She remembered the story of the Vethkai. 300 years ago, the Vethkai were dying. They were an insectoid species, beings with 6 legs and hard shells and compound eyes that saw the universe in colors humans could not imagine. Their homeworld had been poisoned by centuries of industrial waste. The soil was dead. The crops would not grow. 40 billion Vethkai faced slow starvation. They sent out calls for help to every species in the galaxy. No one answered. The Vethkai had nothing to offer. They had no advanced technology. They had no valuable resources. They had no military power. They were farmers, nothing more. Who would waste resources on farmers? Humanity answered. 17 generation ships left Earth's orbit. They carried soil, bacteria, agricultural scientists, seeds from 1,000 different plants, and enough food to feed the Vethkai for 30 years. The ships took 11 years to reach the Vethkai homeworld. Many of the humans who left Earth never saw home again. When the ships arrived, the Vethkai could not understand. Their language had no word for what the humans were doing. The concept of helping someone who could not pay you back did not exist in their culture. The human mission commander, a woman named Sarah Okonkwo, tried to explain. The Vethkai queen asked her, "What do you want from us? What is the price?" Sarah smiled and said, "There is no price. We came because you were hungry." The Vethkai queen was silent for a long time. Then she asked, "Why?" Sarah did not have a good answer. She just shrugged and said, "Because that is what humans do." The humans stayed for 40 years. They taught the Vethkai how to heal their soil. They showed them new ways to grow food. They lived among them, learned their language, married into their families. When the work was done and the humans finally left, the Vethkai were no longer dying. Their world was green again, and they never forgot. Yara remembered another story, one her grandmother told her when she was afraid of the dark. 200 years ago, the Orani were a species that lived in the deep oceans of their water world. They were gentle beings, curious and kind, but they had no technology to reach the stars. When their pressure domes began to fail, they had no way to call for help. Their distress signals were weak, barely audible through the static of space. A human submarine captain named Elena Vasquez picked up the signal by accident. She was on a routine patrol far from Earth, in a sector where humans had no business being. She was not authorized to respond. Her superiors told her to ignore it and continue her mission. She did not listen. Elena took her submarine and her crew into the dark waters of the Orani world. The pressure was crushing. The cold was deadly. Human technology was not built for such depths. But Elena went anyway. She saved 3,000 Orani that day. She led them to safety through waters that should have killed her 100 times over. When her submarine finally broke apart under the pressure, she was still guiding the last group of refugees to the surface. Elena Vasquez died in the deep, along with half her crew. Her last transmission was simple. They were afraid and alone in the dark. Just like us, the Orani built a shrine to her at the bottom of their ocean. They still sing songs about the human woman who came to save them when no one else would. Yara wiped tears from her eyes. There were so many stories. The Thessians, whose children were saved from a plague by human doctors who gave their lives for the cure. The Mizrarshan, 40 million refugees who were given homes on Earth when their empire fell. The Crystalline Collective, silicon beings whose minds were saved by human musicians who learned to hear their song. 52 species. 52 times humanity had reached out into the dark and said, "You are not alone. We are here. Let us help." 52 species had voted yes today. They remembered. But 52 species were not enough. They did not have the resources to save Earth. They did not have the ships or the technology or the power. They had only their gratitude and their memory. Yara's communicator beeped. She looked down and saw 52 messages waiting for her. One from each species that had voted yes. She opened the first message. It was from Admiral Korath of the Thessian Dominion. His species were massive beings, covered in natural armor, with jaws that could crush steel. They had once been conquerors, feared across the galaxy. Now they were something else. His message was short. Ambassador Chen, we remember what the humans did for our children. We remember Dr. Okonkwo, who died so that our young could live. The Thessian Dominion stands with humanity. We do not know how to save your world, but we will find a way. Because once, when we were dying, you found a way for us. Meet us at the Kepler Verge station. Bring whoever you can trust. We will not let Earth die alone. Yara read the other messages. They all said the same thing in different words. We remember. We will help. We do not know how yet, but we will find a way. For the first time since she learned about the singularity, Yara Chen smiled. 52 species remembered, and they were coming. The station at Kepler Verge was old and forgotten. It floated in the darkness between stars, far from any trade routes or colonies. The perfect place for a secret meeting. Yara Chen watched through the viewport as ships arrived one by one. Thessian warships, massive and armored. Vethkai transport vessels, covered in living green plants. Orani waterships, spheres of liquid suspended in force fields. Mr. Shan fighters, sleek and fast, and dozens more, each stranger than the last. 52 species, 52 debts of gratitude, 52 memories of human kindness. They gathered in the station's central chamber, a vast room that had not seen life in centuries. The air was cold and stale, but no one complained. They had not come for comfort. Admiral Korath stood at the center of the room. He was enormous, nearly 3 meters tall, his body covered in thick plates of natural armor. His people had once conquered half the galaxy. Now he stood among former enemies as an ally. We are the remembered, he said, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. That is what we call ourselves now, because we remember what humanity did for us. Each of us owes our lives, our children, our futures to a species that asked nothing in return. He looked around the room at the gathered delegates. Some were giants like him. Some were tiny, barely visible to human eyes. Some were clouds of gas or collections of crystal or beings of pure energy. But they all listened. Humans have asked nothing of us for 300 years, Korath continued. Not once. They never called in their debts. They never demanded payment. They simply helped. And then they moved on to help someone else. A Vethkai delegate stepped forward. Her name was Queen Sister Thoraxis, and she represented the billions of insectoids that humanity had saved from starvation. Her compound eyes glittered in the dim light. My grandmother told me stories of the humans, she said. She was a young worker when they came. She watched them plant the first seeds in our dead soil. She saw them teach our farmers how to bring life back to our world. When she asked why they came, The human woman just smiled and said, "Because you were hungry." Thraxis's voice cracked with emotion. "We were hungry. That was all. We had nothing to give them. We had no power, no technology, no value. And still they came. They stayed for 40 years. Many of them died on our world, far from home. And when they left, they asked for nothing. A being of pure light floated forward. This was the voice of the Yith, speaking for a species that lived in the hearts of stars. They were ancient beings, older than most civilizations in the galaxy. When our home star began to die, the voice said, we called out to the younger races for help. We did not expect anyone to answer. We were strange to them. Incomprehensible. Frightening, perhaps. We had nothing to offer but our existence. The light pulsed gently. The humans came. They could not understand us. They could not even see us properly. But they learned. They spent 50 years learning how to communicate with us. They built devices that could translate our thoughts. And then they found us a new star to call home. When we asked them why they helped, the voice continued. They said something that has stayed with us ever since. They said, every life has value. Even the strange ones. Especially the strange ones. One by one, the delegates shared their stories. The Crystalline Collective told of human musicians who had saved their species from madness by composing a new harmonic for their hive mind. The Mizrashan told of Earth opening its doors to 40 million refugees when every other world turned them away. The Thessians told of Dr. Samuel Okonkwo, who had died finding a cure for the plague that was killing their children. Each story was different, but they all had the same ending. The humans helped. They asked for nothing, and then they left. Yara Chen listened to the stories with tears streaming down her face. She had grown up hearing these tales, but hearing them from the species themselves was something else entirely. She had not known how deeply humanity's kindness had touched these beings. She had not known how long they had waited for a chance to repay a debt that was never asked to be repaid. Finally, Admiral Korath raised his massive hand for silence. We all know why we are here, he said. Earth is dying. A singularity is moving toward their sun. In 18 months, 8 billion humans will cease to exist. The Galactic Assembly has refused to help. His eyes swept across the room. But we are not the Galactic Assembly. We are the remembered. And we will not let the humans die alone. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Everyone knew the truth. 52 species, most of them small and poor and powerless, could not stop a singularity. They did not have the technology. They did not have the resources. They did not have the numbers. But then a small voice spoke up. It came from a tank of water in the corner of the room, where the Orani delegation floated. The speaker was an old female named Depth Singer Valis. She had spent her entire life in the deep oceans of her world, in the place where Elena Vasquez had died saving her ancestors. We cannot stop the singularity, Valis said. Her voice was soft, translated through machines into words the others could understand. The physics are clear. Nothing can stop it. Korath nodded grimly. Then what do you suggest? We cannot save them if we cannot stop the threat. Valis floated closer to the surface of her tank. I did not say we cannot save them. I said we cannot stop the singularity. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was stronger. We cannot stop the singularity from reaching their star, but perhaps we do not need to. Perhaps we need only to move what matters. The room went silent. Every being stared at the Orani elder. Move what matters, Korath repeated slowly. You mean, move the humans? Evacuate 8 billion people? That is impossible. No, Valis interrupted. Not just the people. She looked up at the gathered delegates, her ancient eyes glittering in the water. We move the planet. We move Earth itself. For a long moment, no one spoke. The idea was insane. Moving a planet was the stuff of legends, of ancient myths about gods who played with worlds like toys. No species had ever done such a thing. The technology did not exist. The power requirements alone would be beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. But then, slowly, Admiral Korath began to laugh. It was a deep, rumbling sound that shook the walls. Move the planet, he said. The old woman wants us to move a planet. He stopped laughing and looked around the room. His eyes were bright with something that might have been hope. The Thessians can provide protection and clear a path. The Mizrashan can calculate the navigation. The Yith can provide power. The Orani can build the gravitational machinery. The Vethkai can protect the biosphere during transit. The crystallines can coordinate communications. He began to point at different delegations. You have shield technology. You have engine designs. You have material science. You have medical knowledge. Every species here has something to contribute. Korath turned to face Yara Chen. Ambassador, when the humans saved us, they did not ask if it was possible. They did not calculate the costs. They simply did what needed to be done. He raised his fist in the air. Today, we do the same. We will move Earth. We will save humanity. Not because it is possible, but because it must be done. Around the room, fists and claws and tentacles and appendages rose into the air. 52 species, united by a common memory, committed to an impossible task. The remembered would move a world. The work began immediately. Across the galaxy, ships moved in secret. Factories that had been silent for years roared back to life. Scientists who had never met each other began sharing knowledge across light years of space. The Galactic Assembly knew something was happening. Their spies reported strange movements, unusual communications, unexplained gatherings, but they could not understand what they were seeing. 52 minor species, working together in perfect coordination? It made no sense. On the hidden station at Kepler Verge, the planning went on day and night. Engineers from a dozen worlds argued over designs. Scientists debated physics that had never been tested. Leaders made decisions that would affect billions of lives. And in the middle of it all, a young human engineer named Marcus Reyes tried to learn how to talk to fish. Marcus was 28 years old. He had grown up in the orbital stations around Jupiter, building things with his hands since he could walk. When the call went out for human engineers to join the project, he had volunteered immediately. He did not know what he was getting into. They assigned him to work with the Orani on the gravitational sled. This was the device that would actually move the Earth. It would create a bubble of warped space around the planet, allowing it to slide through the universe without tearing itself apart. The problem was that the Orani were water beings. They thought in currents and pressures and temperatures. Their language was made of sounds that human ears could barely hear, and their lead engineer was depth singer Valis, the old female who had suggested the plan in the first place. Marcus spent his first week just trying to understand what she was saying. The translation machines helped, but they could not capture everything. Orani thought in ways that humans did not. They felt gravity like humans felt warmth. They sensed electromagnetic fields like humans sensed sound. One night, after another frustrating day of miscommunication, Marcus sat alone in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. He did not hear Valis approach until she was floating in a portable water tank beside him. "You are troubled," she said through the translator. Marcus sighed. "I do not understand you. Your people, I mean. The way you think. The way you see the world. I feel like I am trying to build a bridge with someone who does not know what a bridge is." Valis was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, "Why did you come here, human? Why did you volunteer for this work?" "Because Earth is my home," Marcus said. "Because my family is there. Because I want to save them." "That is not what I asked," Valis said. "I asked why you came here. To work with us. You could have worked with humans. You could have stayed where you were comfortable. Why did you choose to struggle with beings you do not understand?" Marcus thought about it. "I do not know," he admitted. I suppose because you needed help. And I wanted to help." Valis made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. "You see? You are already more Orani than you know. We also believe that help should be given where it is needed, not where it is easy." She floated closer to the viewport. "Do you know why we call ourselves the Remembered?" "Because you remember what humanity did for you," Marcus said. "Yes. But it is more than that." Valis's voice grew soft. "Do you know the story of Elena Vasquez?" Marcus nodded. Every human knew the story. "She was the submarine captain who saved your people. She died in the deep." "She did more than save us," Valis said. "She taught us something we had forgotten. In the deep places of our world, we had become isolated. Each pod kept to itself. We did not help each other. We did not even speak to each other. We were dying, and we did not care enough to save ourselves." The old Orani turned to face Marcus. "Elena Vasquez came to us from another world, through water that should have crushed her, to save beings she had never met. And when we asked her why, she said something that changed everything." "What did she say?" Valis's eyes glittered in the starlight. She said, "You were afraid and alone in the dark, just like us. That was all." She did not speak of duty, or reward, or honor. She simply saw us as the same as her, alone and afraid. Marcus was silent, thinking about this. After she died, Valis continued, "We began to change. We reached out to other pods. We helped each other. We remembered that we were all alone in the dark together, and that the only way to survive was to reach out to each other." She touched the glass of her tank with one tendril. "That is why we are here now. Not because we owe humanity a debt. Debts can be calculated, and paid, and forgotten. We are here because Elena Vasquez taught us that the darkness is not so frightening when you face it together." Marcus looked at the old Orani with new eyes. He understood something now that he had not understood before. "I will learn," he said. "I will learn to think like you. I will learn your language, your way of seeing. Whatever it takes." Valis made that laughing sound again. "Good. Then let us begin. We have a planet to move." Over the next months, Marcus worked closer with the Orani than any human had before. He learned to feel gravity the way they did. He learned to sense the currents of space itself, and slowly, the gravitational sled began to take shape. It was a beautiful thing when it was finished. A ring of generators, each one the size of a small moon, connected by threads of pure energy. When activated, it would wrap Earth in a cocoon of warped space and carry it across the galaxy to safety. But there was a problem. The Galactic Assembly had finally figured out what was happening. Admiral Korath called an emergency meeting. His massive form filled the center of the room as he delivered the news. "The Assembly has declared our operation illegal," he said. "They claim that moving a planet violates natural celestial mechanics. 3 major powers have threatened military intervention if we proceed." The room erupted in worried voices. Military intervention meant war. It meant death. It meant that everything they had worked for could be destroyed in an instant. But then Korath raised his hand for silence. "I did not call this meeting to discuss surrender," he growled. "I called it to discuss strategy. The Assembly fleet is gathering at the edge of the sector. They will move to intercept us within the week." He looked around the room at the gathered delegates. "The Thessian fleet will engage them. We will buy you time to complete the operation and begin the move." A Mistrashan commander stepped forward. "The Mistrashan strike forces will fight alongside you. Our pilots know these systems better than anyone." One by one, the military powers among the remembered pledged their forces. 7 species with combat capability, all willing to fight and die to protect the operation. Queen Sister Theraxis raised her voice. "What about the rest of us? Those of us who cannot fight?" "You continue the work," Korath said. "You finish the sled. You prepare Earth. You do what must be done." He turned to face the human delegation. Ambassador Yara Chen stood beside Marcus Reyes and a handful of other human representatives. "Ambassador," Korath said, "you must return to Earth. Your people must be prepared for what is coming. The journey will not be easy. There will be earthquakes, storms, death. They must be ready." Yara nodded grimly. "They will be ready. Humans have faced hard times before. We will face this one together." Korath looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he saluted. It was a gesture he had learned from human soldiers. Years ago, when they had fought alongside each other against a common enemy. 300 years ago, he said, "Humans saved my people without asking for anything in return. Today, we return the favor. Not because we owe you, but because you taught us what it means to be truly strong. The strong do not prey upon the weak. They protect them." He turned to address the entire room. "The Assembly fleet is coming. They outnumber us. They outgun us. They believe they cannot be stopped." His voice rose to a roar. "Let us show them what happens when 52 species remember what it means to stand together. Let us show them the power of gratitude. Let us show them that kindness is not weakness, but the strongest force in the universe." The room exploded in cheers. Every being, from the smallest insectoid to the largest Thessian warrior, raised their voice in agreement. The remembered went to war. The battle began at dawn. Admiral Korath stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the enemy fleet approach. They were beautiful in a terrible way, thousands of ships glittering in the light of distant stars, the combined forces of 3 galactic powers, all determined to stop the operation. His own fleet was smaller, 7 species, less than a third of the enemy numbers. They had no chance of winning. They only needed to survive long enough for the operation to begin. All ships, Koreth said into his communicator. This is Admiral Koreth. Today we fight for the beings who taught us that strength is not measured in weapons but in compassion. Today we remember. The Thessian warships moved forward in formation. Behind them came the Mizurshon strike fighters, small and fast and deadly. Beside them floated the crystalline warships, their hulls singing with harmonic frequencies that disrupted enemy targeting systems. The first shots lit up the darkness of space. Far away, on the hidden station at Kepler Verge, the operation began. The gravitational sled hummed to life, its generators glowing with power drawn from the Yith energy beings. Slowly, carefully, it moved into position around Earth. On Earth, 8 billion humans looked up at the sky. They had been told what was coming. They had been warned to secure their homes, to hold on to something solid, to prepare for the impossible. Ambassador Yara Chen stood in the Central Command Center in Geneva, watching screens that showed the battle and the operation simultaneously. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. All stations report ready, she said into her communicator. Begin the move. The gravitational sled activated. The Earth shuddered. It was a strange feeling, like the ground itself was vibrating with an unknown frequency. Buildings swayed, trees bent, the oceans rose and fell in waves that had no wind to cause them. Across the planet, people grabbed hold of walls and furniture and each other, and then, slowly, impossibly, the Earth began to move. In space, the battle raged on. Thessian dreadnoughts threw themselves into the line of fire, their massive hulls absorbing shots meant for smaller ships. Their crews sang human songs as they fought, songs their grandparents had learned during the plague years when human doctors had saved their children. The Mizurshon pilots flew with impossible skill, their fighters dancing through the enemy formations like leaves in a storm. They whispered human prayers as they died, prayers their ancestors had learned in the refugee camps on Earth when humanity had given them a home. The crystalline warships broadcast harmonics that confused and disrupted the enemy fleet. The same harmonics that human musicians had taught them centuries ago. The song that had saved their collective mind from madness. One by one, the ships of the remembered fell. But they kept fighting. They kept holding the line. And behind them, Earth continued its long journey across the stars. The transit would take 3 years. 3 years of constant adjustment, constant danger, constant sacrifice. The gravitational sled needed enormous power, more power than any single species could provide. The Yith gave that power. The Yith were beings of pure energy, creatures that lived in the hearts of stars. They were ancient beyond imagining, wise beyond understanding, and they were burning themselves out to fuel Earth's journey. Marcus Reyes watched them from the observation deck of the Orani flagship. They were beautiful, the Yith, points of light that danced and swirled like living flames, but he could see that they were growing dimmer. Each day, there were fewer of them. Each day, their light grew weaker. He asked Depth Singer Valis about it one night. They are dying, she said simply. They are giving their life energy to power the engines. When the journey is complete, there will be very few of them left. Marcus felt sick. Can we not find another power source? Can we not save them? Valis shook her head. They were asked. They refused. They said. She paused, searching for the right words. They said that when their star was dying, humans spent 50 years learning to communicate with them. 50 years of effort, just to understand beings that no one else would try to know. And then the humans found them a new home. She floated closer to the viewport, watching the Yith dance in the darkness. The Yith said, "You carried us when our stars died. We carry you now. This is what it means to remember." The months passed. Earth moved through the darkness of space, wrapped in its cocoon of warped gravity. The biosphere was protected by the Vethkai seed ships, which surrounded the planet and absorbed the deadly radiation of interstellar space. The Vethkai crews worked themselves to exhaustion, their biological ships slowly dying from the constant bombardment. Many of them did not survive. On Earth, life continued. People went to work. Children went to school. Families gathered for meals and celebrations and mourning. But every night, they looked up at the sky and saw unfamiliar stars, and they knew that they were traveling to a new home. Ambassador Yara Chen made regular broadcasts to the population. She told them about the progress of the journey, She told them about the sacrifices being made on their behalf. She told them about the 52 species who had remembered human kindness and were now giving everything to return it. "We are not alone," she said in one broadcast. "We were never alone. For 300 years, we reached out to the galaxy with open hands. Today, the galaxy reaches back. The journey was hard. There were earthquakes and storms and disruptions that killed thousands. The gravity fluctuations caused medical problems that human doctors had never seen before. The psychological stress of knowing that their entire planet was moving through space took a toll on many minds. But humans are a resilient species. They adapted. They supported each other. They survived." On the Urani flagship, Marcus Reyes worked side by side with depth singer Valis, making constant adjustments to the gravitational field. They had become more than colleagues. They had become friends. He had learned to feel gravity the way she did. She had learned to understand human emotions the way he expressed them. One day, near the end of the 3rd year, Valis collapsed. Her old body had finally given out from the stress. Marcus caught her before she hit the floor of her tank. "Valis!" he shouted. "Someone help!" Medical teams rushed in, but there was nothing they could do. Valis was dying. Marcus stayed with her through the final hours. He held her tendril in his hand, trying to give her what comfort he could. "We are almost there," he told her. "Just a few more weeks. You did it, Valis. You saved them. You saved Earth." Valis's eyes flickered open. They were dim now, barely glowing. "Tell them," she whispered. "Tell them we remembered." "I will," Marcus promised. "I will tell everyone." Valis made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You sound like her now, like Elena Vasquez." She also made promises to dying Urani. Marcus did not know what to say. He just held her tendril tighter. "I never met her," Valis said, "but I know her. Every Urani knows her. We carry her with us, in our songs and our stories and our hearts. She taught us that we are not alone in the dark." Her eyes focused on Marcus one last time. "You taught me the same thing, human. You reached out to a strange old fish in a tank, and you learned to understand her. You did not have to, but you did, because you needed help," Marcus said, echoing words he had spoken years ago. Valis smiled. "Yes, that is what humans do. That is why we love you. That is why we will always remember." She closed her eyes. "Tell them, Marcus. Tell them the story of Elena Vasquez. Tell them the story of the remembered. Tell them that kindness is never wasted. It echoes across centuries and light years. It moves worlds." Depth singer Valis died as the Earth entered its new orbit around a distant star. She died as humanity reached safety. She died knowing that everything she had given was worth it. Marcus Reyes held her tendril until it grew cold. Then he stood and walked to the viewport. Outside, Earth hung in the darkness, beautiful and blue and alive. Around it, the ships of the remembered gathered in silent witness. They had done it. They had moved a world, and the cost had been everything. 1 year had passed since the arrival. Earth had changed. The coastlines were different now. The climate had shifted. Cities that had stood for centuries were gone, swallowed by earthquakes and storms during the transit. Millions had died, but humanity had survived. And today, they gathered to remember. The memorial stood on a hill overlooking the new ocean. It was a simple thing, just a wall of black stone with names carved into its surface. Names of every species that had helped. Names of every ship that had fought. Names of every being who had died so that Earth could live. The list was long. 400 million dead. 17 species had lost significant portions of their populations. The Yith, once a race of millions, now numbered less than 500. The Thessian fleet was shattered. Their great warships scattered across the galaxy in pieces. Ambassador Yara Chen stood before the memorial. Around her, representatives of all 52 species gathered in silence. Behind them, broadcast drones carried her image to every corner of Earth, and to every ship and station across the galaxy. She took a deep breath and began to speak. 300 years ago, a human submarine captain named Elena Vasquez died saving aliens she had never met. She traveled through water that should have crushed her, to rescue beings she could not even understand. When her superiors asked why she did it, her answer was simple. They were afraid, and alone in the dark. Just like us. Yara looked out at the gathered crowd. Elena Vasquez was not special. She was not unique. She did not have powers or abilities beyond those of any ordinary human. She was simply human, and for 300 years, we have tried to live up to her example. She gestured at the memorial behind her. Today, I am asked to thank the 52 species who saved our world, but I find that I cannot, because thanks implies a debt. It suggests that what was given can be measured and repaid, and then forgotten. Her voice grew stronger. What these beings gave us cannot be measured. It cannot be repaid. It can only be honored. She turned to face the alien delegates. You gave your ships. You gave your technology. You gave your energy. You gave your lives. The Thessians, who once conquered half the galaxy, threw their fleet into battle to protect a planet they had never visited. The Vethkai, who we saved from starvation, sent their seed ships to shield us from radiation, knowing their crews would not survive. The Yith, ancient beings older than most stars, burned themselves out to power our journey. Yara's voice cracked with emotion. Depth singer Valis of the Orani died with her tendril in a human's hand. Her last words a message for all of us. Tell them we remembered. I am here today to deliver that message. She faced the cameras, knowing that billions across the galaxy were watching. To every species in this galaxy, whether you are part of the collective or not, whether you are our allies or our enemies, whether you have anything to offer us or nothing at all, I make this promise on behalf of all humanity. If you are afraid, we will come. If you are hungry, we will bring food. If you are dying, we will bring hope. If you are alone in the dark, we will bring light. This is not charity. This is not strategy. This is not a transaction. This is who we are. This is who Elena Vasquez taught us to be. This is who the Remembered taught us to be. She raised her fist in the air. The Remembered taught us something today. They taught us that kindness is not weakness. It is the strongest force in the universe. It outlasts empires. It survives the death of stars. It moves worlds. From this day forward, let it be known across every corner of this galaxy. Humanity remembers too. And when you call, we will answer. The crowd erupted in cheers. Human and alien voices rose together, a sound that had never been heard before in the history of the galaxy. Across the stars, the message was received. In the great halls of the Galactic Assembly, the Grand Arbiter watched in silence. His aides whispered to him about military options, about sanctions, about ways to punish the species that had defied the collective's authority. But the Grand Arbiter was old. He had been watching the galaxy for a very long time, and he had seen empires rise and fall, had seen species come and go, had seen every form of power that the universe had to offer. He had never seen anything like this. What do we do? One of his aides asked. The Grand Arbiter was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, we do nothing. We watch. We learn. And perhaps if we are wise, we remember. 50 years passed. The galaxy changed. The Remembered grew. What had begun as 52 species became 100, then 150. Species that had once been enemies now worked side by side. Old grudges were forgotten. New alliances were formed. The old hierarchies, built on power and fear, began to crumble. A new philosophy spread across the stars. It had no name, no leader, no sacred texts. It was simply a way of being that began with a submarine captain and grew in the hearts of farmers and warriors and beings of light. The Yith, reduced to just a few hundred individuals, were offered a new home within Earth's sun. They accepted. Their energy merged with the star that now warmed humanity's world, and their harmonics spread outward in waves of light. The crystalline collective wove their song together with the Yith's harmonics and the melodies of human music. The result was something new, something beautiful, something that carried meaning across the entire galaxy. It was a simple message, broadcast endlessly on every frequency. You are not alone. You were never alone. And when you call, we will answer. On Earth, life continued. In gardens tended by Vethkai farmers, human children played alongside insectoid young. In schools taught by Miznershan teachers, students of a dozen species learned together. In dojos run by Thessian veterans, warriors from across the galaxy trained side by side. And in the deep oceans of Earth's new home, young Orani swimmers learned the story of a human engineer named Marcus Reyes. Marcus had never returned to the surface. After Valis died, he had asked to join the Orani community beneath the waves. He had married an Orani, He had raised Urani children alongside human ones. He had spent the rest of his life keeping his promise to the old depth singer who had taught him what it meant to reach out to someone different. He had remembered. Now his grandchildren, human and Urani alike, swam together through the deep waters. They sang songs about Elena Vasquez and depth singer Valis. They told stories about the time when the galaxy came together to move a world, and when they looked up at the distant light filtering down from the surface, they knew that they were part of something larger than themselves, something that had begun with a simple act of kindness and had grown to encompass the stars. Far across the galaxy, on a small world that had never heard of Earth, a distress signal went out. A species was dying. They had nothing to offer, no technology, no resources, no strategic value. They were simply afraid and alone in the dark. Within hours, ships began to appear in their sky. Thessian warships and Vethkai transports and Orani waterships, human vessels and Mr. fighters and crystalline arcs, beings of every shape and size and origin, all coming to help. The dying species could not understand. They asked the question that had been asked so many times before. Why? Why do you help us? We have nothing. We are nothing. Why do you come? And the answer was the same answer it had always been. The same answer Elena Vasquez had given 300 years ago. The same answer that had moved a world and changed a galaxy. Because you need help. Because you are afraid and alone in the dark. Just like us. The dying species joined the remembered that day. They learned the stories. They heard the songs. They understood, finally, what it meant to be part of something greater than themselves. And years later, when another species called out in desperation, they answered. They remembered. They always remembered, because that is what it means to be human. Not the species, but the idea, the choice to reach out, the decision to help, the courage to give without expectation of return. Elena Vasquez started something that day in the deep. She could not have known what it would become. She simply saw beings in need and decided to help them. 300 years later, her choice had spread across the galaxy. It had inspired warriors and farmers and beings of pure light. It had moved a world. It had changed everything, and it was still growing. Because kindness is like that. It does not stop. It does not fade. It echoes across centuries and light years, growing stronger with each repetition. Somewhere out there, right now, someone is afraid and alone in the dark. And somewhere else, someone is reaching out to help them. That is the legacy of Elena Vasquez. That is the gift of the remembered. That is the story of humanity. They remember. They always remember. And when you call, they answer.